So the way that I ended up here actually is our work is included in a really interesting documentary coming out. It was developed by Bloomberg Philanthropies. And so it's called From the Ashes. It's going to premiere next week in New York City at the Tribeca Film Festival. And so I want to start off just with the promo for that video, and then we'll launch into the PowerPoint after that.
We're still quite dependent on coal, but coal was a 19th century source of fuel. And we're in the 21st century.
The town is completely shut down.
We're losing everything.
Show of hands, how many of you believe there's a war on coal? Yeah.
What's happening is not a war on coal, it's coal's war on our health.
Burning coal kills. You get asthma, lung disease, cancer.
It's the biggest contributor to climate change.
This is United States of America here, and we're fearing our water.
With Donald J. Trump as president, our miners are going back to work.
We need real jobs, and coal isn't it.
Coal still can be mined, and coal can still power America.
If we're sitting waiting for coal to come in and be our savior again, we're fooling ourselves.
It's just going to get worse. Something has to change. You got to do something different.
This is the pivot point. Either do something about it or leave it for future generations.
So for a variety of reasons, the coal industry, it is in decline. And at Coalfield Development, we're a nonprofit working in southern West Virginia. We're not really hung up on getting sucked into the fight of why that is or if that's good or not. We are a community-based organization focused on what we do next, where we go from here. And so Appalachian courage, creativity, and community, that's what we feel we can tap into to redefine ourselves and to figure out our future, while not letting go of what's great about our place. So a lot of environmentalists really, this is an organization I started with some volunteers in 2010. A lot of environmentalists push back and say, why call it coalfield development? You know, if coal's a thing of the past, if coal's so bad. And the answer is because we're community-based. And as a community in Central Appalachia, we really have powered this country for a very long time, and we're proud of that. And the miner who mined the coal just to put food on the table for his family is no more guilty of climate change than most people up and down the East Coast who flipped on a light switch. And so we keep coalfield development because we're proud of who we are. And yet we want to tap into our courage and creativity and community and be realistic about the fact that now we're going to have to adapt. And if we can do that well, then our future can be even better than our past. The need is great. So I come from a state that now has the highest unemployment rate in the country, the lowest labor participation rate in the country, a lot of dependence on public programs for survival, the nation's second lowest education rate. These are just the realities. At Coalfield Development, we've created social enterprises. That's our main strategy, is social enterprises that we've established in some sectors of the economy that we think have real economic potential to take off and to be financially sustainable. Sustainable construction, sustainable agriculture, solar installation, mine land reclamation, and arts and culture, things like woodworking and quilting and artwork. We hire unemployed folks, many of whom are former miners, and we enroll them in what we call our 33, 6, and 3 model. This is how we organize the work week, 33 hours of paid work, just like an employee would get with any other company. 6 hours, though, are in the community college classroom, working towards an associate's degree, and 3 hours of personal development, things like life skills that kind of get left out of the workforce development system too often. And so at the end of the 2.5-year contract, folks have worked a real job with real work experience. They've earned professional certifications. They've got an associate's degree, which is huge. And then we work with a network of private employers to launch a career or ideally become an entrepreneur, which is really how we can diversify our economy, is through entrepreneurship. We started off in 2010, our first social enterprise was deconstruction. So we have a lot of out-migration, a lot of brain drain. In southern West Virginia, leaves a lot of empty buildings. And they're eyesores, they're also safety hazards, and they're really kind of just demoralizing for the community. And so instead of, the gist is cities were just trying to get grants and then knock them down with a bulldozer and it all go to landfill. Instead of doing that, we would hire unemployed people, enroll them in the 33-6 and 3 model, and then deconstruct them piece by piece and reuse and resell and recycle those materials. From there, we got into upcycling. So here's our woodshop crew, which instead of the raw grunt labor out in the field of taking it apart, now the finer artistic work of making home furnishing products that have a lot of character and that are coming from these recycled materials that were headed for a landfill. And these are earned revenue streams so that we're not totally dependent on those grants all the time. And we can start to create a whole new economy from the bottom up, which is the coolest part. So we recently were a grantee of the POWER program. That's a federal program through the Appalachian Regional Commission, as well as some others, which are under a funding threat, just so you know. And so that enabled us to go into the solar industry and also into sustainable agriculture, which actually are those two enterprises we call Rewire Appalachia and Refresh Appalachia are growing at a faster rate than our previous enterprises. So it's really an exciting time for us. So this is a Refresh Appalachia site. It's on a former mountaintop removal site. So if you're familiar with the mining industry, especially on the East Coast, there's this system of mining called mountaintop removal, which the reality of it is, I mean, it is just an incredibly destructive way to get coal. There's just no way around stating that. And it takes what used to be a lush forest and it makes it now a flat field, basically. It just doesn't fit in with our incredibly lush and diverse ecosystems that we're blessed with in Appalachia. And so Refresh Appalachia is doing sustainable farming on these sites in a way that doesn't just create great, healthy agriculture products, which is awesome, but it also cultivates the soil and regenerates the soil to really reclaim these former mine sites and to bring them back to life and to convert them from former liabilities to now being assets for the community. Also, sustainable housing on former mountaintop removal sites. So these are our trainees building a timber frame home, which is an Appalachian trade that, we just don't make houses like we used to. We want to get back to better quality with the most beautiful views that you could ever imagine. Solar installation, which is, people are always surprised. I mean, we were the first company, we're a licensed general contractor. We were the first company in southern West Virginia to get licensed in solar install. And we really just did it as a training mechanism, just for our folks to learn a new modern skill. And once word got out we were licensed to do solar install, it just took off. And we never intended for solar to be its own enterprise, but we were getting so much demand that we had to spin it off to become its own enterprise, just simply in response to demand. So, and then construction's kind of our bread and butter. We usually work in empty buildings, and we turn these empty buildings really into just catalytic transformation of places to create community assets where people can start businesses, build community, and just have interesting places. And I think actually in sustainability conversations, this gets left out too much. In construction, if you can keep a building up instead of always doing new construction, if you can salvage these old buildings and reclaim the embedded energy in those buildings, it's a great sustainability strategy that gets overlooked. So that is coalfield development, tapping into Appalachian courage, creativity, and community. So we go back to the mountaintop removal site that I mentioned. What's really interesting, we have a sustainable farm there. We have sustainable energy efficient housing built there, solar development there. And these are laid off coal miners that are doing this work now. And there was this great moment. It wasn't like for the press or anything. We had a laid off miner working in a raised bed. And if you look right across the mountain, you see an active strip mine, just massive equipment, unbelievably large equipment, still strip mining. And this fella, he just looked over there and he said, well, I guess there's the past and this here's the future. And it's just so wise, and he didn't even mean to be. It was a beautiful moment. Here we are at graduation. Folks who just never dreamed, and they'll tell you, I'm the first in my family to get a college degree, but really I'm the first in my family to even think about, consider enrolling in a college to get a college degree. And so the beautiful thing here is if you notice the kids. And so, coal is a boom and bust industry. We're in a bust right now. It's the biggest bust ever in the history of the industry. But I think we forget sometimes it's not like we were super well off before this bust. Before the bust, we still had some of the highest unemployment, highest rates of poverty, lowest rates of education. And so what we really need to do, and what we have an opportunity to do now, is reverse these cycles of generational poverty. We can start to reverse those. And so as a region with the coal industry in decline, it is a really, really scary moment, a really, really scary time, and people are feeling a lot of pain. And it's important for the country to understand that, how hard this transition is on us. But it is an opportunity. The void that's been left by the industry, it is an opportunity to finally diversify our economy, to not be totally dependent on just one thing for survival, and to really to realize our full potential as a people and as a place. So thanks for listening, and I ask for you to believe in us as a region and invest in us as a region. Thank you.